shit. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Jason here, 160 Run Rev. I got a very special guest tonight. We got Little Tats from Pinstripe Chronicles. We got my man NFT from the Strike Zone. Down below, we've got my man Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and then my man Hector from Morning Brew Sports. We may have a couple more special guests to join us as well. We'll see. But we're going to roundtable this trade deadline, okay, for the Yankees. And again, there's a lot of different, each week the situation changes when it comes to the Yankees and the trade deadline, right? So we're going to get into it. We'll give our best fits, our thoughts, our perspectives, and our predictions. And guys, I want to thank you all for coming on. And before we start, I want to say something to the audience, right? Because the audience has been giving me a lot of shit. I don't know about you guys, but about stuff, right? So the reason why I have these guys on is because they give a lot of constructive value to the conversation all the time. They know how to criticize without being jerks, right? We understand people come to vent. We get that. It's part of the territory. We need to vent, frustrated fans. But there's a way to vent without attacking each other. Okay? We don't need to attack each other. And for those that know me, the second you attack me is the second I'm going to come after you. I don't care who you think you are, who you think you know. I don't care. So as long as we're respectful of each other, that's all we got. It's okay. We can vent. Again, Yankee fans have to vent, man, especially in a situation like this, right? But we also want to stay grounded, live in reality. That's all I want to point out, gentlemen. So I want to thank you guys for doing what you do. You guys do fantastic work, and again, you bring a lot to the conversation. I like to bring guys like this because we elevate each other. I like to elevate you, gang, in the conversations too. So bring your questions, bring your comments, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on. Welcome. So let's round table really quickly. Tess, give us your take. How you feeling about this situation in trade deadline? I mean, we were chatting about it a minute ago, but give everybody a take about how you feeling, man.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I was saying. I think this trade line for a lot of fan bases, not just the Yankees, is going to be highly disappointing. With the expanded playoffs, there's still a lot of teams in it, that are hopeful. So you're talking at tops 5 teams that are already out of it. And, you could even narrow it down to 3 or 4. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement in the trade deadline. I think because everybody's fighting for the same thing. Everybody wants bullpen help. Everybody's looking for, help on the corners in the infield. So it's gonna be tough. I think a lot of fan bases, including our own, I think we need to curb our expectations.
Yeah. And a few words, what are you thinking, man?
This trade deadline is going to be an interesting one, right? And, we heard from Buster Olney and Ken Rosenthal, both were saying that, Brian Cashman's going to be really aggressive at the trade deadline, but, we'll see. I don't know what Brian Cashman's definition of aggressive is. We'll just have to wait and see. Like 2 seasons ago, right, he was aggressive. He was trying to go after Juan Soto, for example, when Juan Soto was playing with the Nationals, but obviously the package that was offered to the Nationals, they rejected it, and then they also tried going after Castillo, the starting pitcher.
Yeah,
their package was also rejected. So what is it going to look like this season? Because there's a lot of teams, especially in the National League, that are contenders. And they're all very, very close to each other as far as wild card spots go. There's so many teams contending, it's not even funny. So we know the obvious teams that are going to be sellers, right? But we still don't know what other teams are going to be involved. It's gonna be tough. There's always these obvious names that are mentioned, but the Yankees are going to have plenty of competition around them too, that are going to be going after these certain players that some of us have talked about.
Ryan, what you take, man?
Yeah, I mean, I agree on all points regarding activity at the deadline. It doesn't look like it's going to be crazy, but I think this is where great GMs are made, right? You have a team that is capable of winning a World Series, in my opinion. I mean, look at the AL. It's the Orioles and kind of feels like it's nobody else. And, we want to talk about flawed teams. Look at Baltimore's rotation outside of Corbin Burns, right? Suarez, Povich, Rodriguez, Kramer. That's not what you would call a dominant rotation. Povich just got lit up today by Oakland, right? That bullpen has some issues too. If the Yankees can get a big-time starter or add to their bullpen or get another piece for their lineup, you can completely change the pennant race in one move. And it feels like it's going to be that kind of deadline. So, if I'm Cashman, I mean, I'm not saying that you go make some dumb deals, but I mean, this feels like the team, right? This feels like the team you push the chips all in for. This feels like the year, really. Astros aren't as good as they've been in years past. I mean, you've got to go for it now, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. Hector, what do you think, man?
Great points. I want to echo what Ryan was saying. When it comes down to, when you look at our division, we have Baltimore that's right there. And then besides that, it's a crapshoot, right? Boston's trying to climb back up to relevancy. Toronto's trying to figure out what they're doing over there. So when you look at the AL East, it's not that far out of the window when it comes to the Yankees. I should say, when it comes to the Yankees losing over the past couple of weeks and Baltimore gaining that much ground or having a big lead in the AL East. At the trade deadline in 2009, when the Yankees, when we won the World Series, that trade deadline wasn't major, right? Chad Godin, Jerry Hurston Jr. was the two moves that Brian Cashman made at the trade deadline. And if we want to compete for the postseason or go far in October this year, we're going to have to do more than just go out there and get a Chad Godin. To your point, Jason, to Tat's point, when you look at the trade deadline, a lot of teams are going to be competing for the same piece. They're going to try to be acquiring the same piece. And that's bullpen help. And the Yankees desperately need bullpen help, just like the Baltimore Orioles, they need bullpen help. And it's going to come down to, what is your organization going to feel comfortable with trading away when it comes to your prospects and the capital that you have to give up. Baltimore, when you look at and shout out to Dane, who does an amazing job covering the Yankees prospects, but when you look at Baltimore and we look at the Yankees farm system, Baltimore, they have more bullets to spend than the New York Yankees when it comes to acquiring that big time piece at the trade deadline. So if the New York Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles are both trying to go for the same piece, Baltimore may be willing to go out there and spend when it comes to trading that prospect, not like the Yankees, because Brian Cashman has been hesitant in years past when it comes to giving up his big prospects.
Yeah, that's good points, man. Would you guys say that the most obvious candidates are Tanner Scott and Garrett Crochet for the bullpen? Well, we don't know what Garrett Crochet's means. He's a hybrid now, but would you say those are the two most obvious names that could be traded?
I would say obvious just because where their teams are at right now. I feel when we get closer to the trade deadline, there's other teams out there that could go on a 2-week spell, just like the Yankees just had, and they could be out of it, right? So there may be one or two teams that may emerge to be more sellers than buyers at the trade deadline as we get closer.
Would you guys say there are any untouchables at this point on the Yankees?
Oh, there's always a list of untouchables. You go Jones, Dominguez. You can even put after this weekend. I think Ben Rice has to pencil himself in, because he's still a little fresh. And you can never say never. But I think Jones, Dominguez. I would put Neely in there, Lombard, area. There's 5 guys that I think that you would really say is off the table, but it's one of those. If they make us an offer we can't refuse, that always changes. That always moves the needle.
Yeah, and are there any names that we're not thinking? Because this is what a few years ago, Cashman traded for Clay Holmes. I didn't know who the hell Clay Holmes was, and we were running around like, he traded Hoyt Park. What the fuck? We were flipping out. He traded Hoyt Park for Clay Holmes, and he turned out great. But now there's a lot of folks are losing faith in Clay Holmes. So does Tanner Scott represent that alternate to Clay Holmes? If the Orioles make a push for Garrett Crochet, do the Yankees go all in for Tanner Scott, right, or vice versa? And there's a couple other names I mentioned, Brian Helsley and some other folks and I'm sure that Cashman's probably talking to somebody that we're not even thinking about.
Yeah,
he does too.
Yeah, there's a lefty in Miami that I have some interest in, Andrew Nardi. He's having his ERA is a little misleading. I don't think the 4.86 reflects how good he actually is. Fastball, slider, lots of strikeouts, and again, left-handed. I mean, I think when you look at the bullpen, not that I'm fully confident in that group, but there are, you kind of see Weaver, what he did yesterday. Unfortunately, it was in a lost effort, but you have Weaver. Canley's been a little better as of late. You have guys that can get righties out. It's just lefties. That's kind of been, I feel like, their Achilles heel. Big time lefties have killed them this year.
And to your Nardi's got a couple of controllable years as opposed to
I think it's 3.5, right? Including this year, it's 3.5 years. So you're gonna have him for the long haul. That's important because look, Holmes is a free agent, Canley's a free agent, Weaver's a free agent after next year. You're not Loaiza obviously lost him, but he's a free agent. You're not gonna keep a lot of these guys in this bullpen for beyond 2025, really.
Yeah. So controllable years is important. Yeah, Now, if you guys, we'll go right into this. If you guys were GMs, what would be the moves that you would make? Tats, what would you do at this deadline?
I think it would have to be trying to get Tanner Scott as the closer, or at least utilize him in either the seventh, eighth, or ninth inning role. I think Holmes, and as much as it's easy to bash on him after yesterday, that was his first save opportunity since June 12th.
Yeah.
So he's a little rusty in that role. Closers are deemed closers to close out the games. And as rusty as he's been, when you're sitting for that long in between save opportunities, that's a lot of extra rust to shake off. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where he goes from here, because he was kind of cruising through until he was down to that last out, that last strike. But I think Tanner Scott is the move.
Now, would you do 2 trades or a trade and a call-up? I do think 2 additions to the bullpen is probably a good idea, as well as 2 additions to the infield, whether it's a trade and a call-up or something like that. So would you do any of that, Tats, if you were the GM? Who would you call?
Yeah, I would take. I would bring up Neely or Beater. I try to get him back into the equation when he's available. I think that because of the competition for the trade deadline, I think we're going to see a lot more adjustments internally than the trade.
How about on the offensive side? Would you do anything?
I think it's I would say no. I'd try to handle everything internally, but the question marks around Dominguez really threw a curveball into the progression of the season. Stanton's health threw a curveball to the season. Rizzo, curveball to the season. LeMahieu, despite today, curveball to the season. But I do think that you're gonna have to look outside. Because our depth is hurt, but it is. I don't see a clear cut answer going, that's the guy. I think it's going to be one of those wild card moves, and I know it's a different position, but like a Clay Holmes or a Luke Voigt. We didn't know what we were getting with Luke Voigt, right? It was just this guy that we were like, all right, we moved a non-essential bullpen piece in Jason Shreve and Graham Voigt, who turned out to be pretty solid for us. It wasn't a long-term solution, but a quick fix. I think that's what we're looking at.
I think to your point, too, the problem right now, at least for the infield, is like we don't know who the hell's available in the infield.
Yeah.
And one guy that we thought was available just got put on the IL yesterday, Luis Rengifo. So that could change the Yankees' calculus, too. And that, to me, I don't know who else. I mean, like, I would like John Birdie to come back. He's on his way back. I think, it doesn't help the Yankees having their backups on the IL, too, as well as starters. That sucks. So, and this is one reason why people are pissed off about him playing Jahmai Jones. Well, unfortunately, it's a lack of options in some situations, right? And we have to wait for these guys to come back and get healthy. So, and it's just the nature of the beast. And I don't think it makes sense to, like you said, during to make a drastic overpay for someone who's not going to be a difference maker just for the sake of making a move. Those are good points, Tats. And what would you do as a GM, bro?
I mean, one thing I would do as a GM, I would most definitely address the bullpen. The bullpen, I think we all agree here that it's in a little bit of shambles right now, and they need lefty bullpen arms. I mean, I know Ryan brought up Andrew Nardi. That's one name that I've been thinking about. Tanner Scott, that's another name that I've been thinking about. But I feel like there's going to be some competition. As much as I would like for the Yankees to go after Crochet, I think the White Sox are going to ask for a bunch of prospects or a bunch of big names from whichever team, whether it be the Yankees. I mean, the Orioles are probably going to go after him. The Dodgers, these are some teams that are been mentioned. But what are the Yankees willing to give up? I mean, that's the big question. So another thing that I would go after for sure is a third baseman. So, I would love for the Yankees to go after Ryan McMahon. Like that guy he's a solid piece. He is a solid piece.
Great
He's
fit.
he's a great fit. Yeah, he's one of the few bright spots in the Colorado Rockies. And I know the Rockies they're saying they're not going to trade him, but if the Yankees could make him an offer they can't refuse, I would love to have him. And third base is a need right now. Even if you get a guy like John Birdie coming back, sure, that's great. But a third base is still, I think getting a guy like McMahon would be an upgrade.
And he's got
would have been
several years on a very reasonable contract.
Yeah, because he's getting paid what, $11 million a year, right?
Something like that.
And he's not a free agent till 2027, 2028. So you get years of control with him. So that's like right up Brian Cashman's alley. He likes getting players with years of control. Another third baseman, and I know some fans have mentioned it, and I don't know if you guys would be down with it, but what about reuniting with Gio Urshela? Just to have him for as a 2-month rental. Would that be an idea? He would be, looking at our third base situation now, I think he's a little bit better than what we got at the moment. But I just wanted to get your guys' feedback on that, your opinions on that. So
I wouldn't go for him over McMahon or somebody like that.
No, of course. I'm saying if McMahon wasn't available, like if the Rockies were just straight up like, nope, we're not trading McMahon, we're holding on to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy we're considered. This is why I hope that the Yankees draft corner infielders this year at a college level, as that aren't far from the major leagues. So the Yankees are deep in middle infield, but they're light in the corner infield spots. So we'll see what they do. And Ryan brings up an important point too. Like, controllable years is what's going to make it easier to re-sign Juan Soto, right? If that's what you want to do, controllable years on a very affordable contract that's going to facilitate that ability to do that. So it's a good take, Senafi. I mean, it's a really good take. Ryan, if you were GM, what would you do?
Yeah, so I mean, to kind of second the point about controllable years and how that affects your ability to get Soto, like, Ben Rice obviously is awesome for the team, like near future 2024 for him to hit well. But also, if you think about it from the 2025 perspective, you're not gonna have to pay first baseman. That's massive, right? Like, that's huge. That changes your payroll dramatically. And kind of looking at how I would approach the deadline, I think third base, like, that's where I'm at. Third base, that's position of need. But I'm really focusing on the pitching because I think this offense can put up runs. I really do. I think they can put up runs. They need one more bat, just kind of lengthen the lineup a little bit. Once they get Stanton back in the equation, if Verdugo doesn't perform at the rate we need him to perform at, I do think Dominguez will be back in time to kind of help you out a little bit there. But 2 relievers and a starter. Like, I need a guy I can go to in game 2. Like, it's not that I don't like think he'll can turn it around or whatever it may be, but I want to make sure I'm secure there, right? Like, injuries happen to rotation late in the year as well. I need a guy who I can slot in game 2, maybe game 3 if somebody in this internally is performing better. But I need somebody I can slot in there in the rotation. I do. I need as many arms as I can get. And if you get another starter, you can move another guy from your rotation to your bullpen. That makes your bullpen better. Pitching is super important. I feel like pitching over this stretch, really, I think that's the most disappointing thing, right? Like, it doesn't feel like the pitching has done the job in situations where they needed him to. So I really would like them to go out and get a surplus of pitching.
Is there anybody you would have your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, like, I know this is kind of a combination of both data and then, like, just kind of what he's done the postseason. If the Rangers fall out of it, right, like, and they have so far, Eovaldi just feels perfect, right? I mean, he's a free agent after this year. He can opt out of his contract, so he's not committed money. You don't have to worry about, like, what his payroll kind of implications are next year. And I mean, he's gotten it done in October. 2 different runs where he guides the team to a World Series, and he's been excellent this year. Fastball velo's up a little bit. It's hard for me to, I mean, could you imagine Cole, Eovaldi, that 1-2 punch if you're in a wild card setting or even just in the postseason? Those 2 guys can get hot and get you to a World Series on their own, really.
Does it kind of feel like unfinished business? Like, he has to come back here to kind of right the wrong. Like, it didn't work.
Yeah. I still remember that game, that 18-run loss. Like, I remember that game back. Like, it's like I remember sitting there in my living room. My mom had to kick me out of the living room. I was so mad about that game. But no, Eovaldi, I mean, it just feels like it would make so much sense in the world, right? Like, if you want to talk about proven postseason, whatever, I mean, what hasn't he done in October, right?
Yeah, damn right. And would you call up anybody?
I think, Neely's obviously somebody that's been talked about, and I think Neely's a really fun option. I'm going to throw out Jorbit Vivas for like the infield. I've been super impressed with what he's done lately. Good swing decision maker, aggressive in zone, but he works a lot of walks. He pulls a lot of fly balls, which he's a lefty, so Yankee Stadium, you're going to love that. And then he plays second and third base. He's young, he's athletic. I think this team is kind of a little too slow, right? Like it feels like one ground ball kind of ends an inning for them, and that I don't think that should be the case for 1 through 9. I mean, I wouldn't say Vivas is like going to have the same impact Rice does. I think Rice kind of had a much better bat in college and just in general, but I think Vivas can help you. And I think, why not? Where prospects either are trade chips or players to help you win a championship. And I don't think they should just be left in AAA to just be question marks.
Now, it's a good point. It's a really good point. I've talked about Vivas recently too. Like Vivas at second and even Birdie at third improves your infield defense, your athleticism, and makes it easier to sit Gleyber Torres if you don't trade him for international, if you don't move him, right? So it adds another dynamic to the offense that it doesn't have right now. So that's a really, really, really good point. And again, like Jorbit Vivas he could be a secret weapon here too if they're not utilizing right now. And he is hitting and he's healthy again. So why not use these guys? I mean, really, really, why not use these guys? And the same thing too. I would, call up Neely or something like, yeah. I mean, I like the Vivas, man. I think it's a good move. Hector, man, what do you think, man? What would you do?
First of all, solid points from everybody on the panel and everybody in the chat. If you guys can, smack the like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure you're following all the different content creators that is on this panel right now. And if you guys have any other content creators that you guys like in the chat, put their names, and we all support everybody. We all uplift everybody in this community. But no, for me, when it comes to the trade deadline, I said it earlier, we're going to have a big trade deadline, bigger than 2009, if we want to go and compete. Shout out to my guy Paranoma and the Fun House, Mike Rotunda. How you doing? When you look at the standings right now, the teams that are on the bottom, Chicago, right? The Marlins, Colorado, Oakland, the Angels, Toronto, Chicago, the Cubs, Detroit, and Texas. Those are the teams that are on the bottom right now. And when you look at the players, we've mentioned a lot of the players on their teams. We brought up Garrett Crochet. Solid point about Nathan Eovaldi. I wanted to bring him up, but my guy Ryan stole him from me. I'm throwing David Robinson for the bullpen also, just because he has some strikeout stuff, and that's why our bullpen needs. We need some guys that get some swings and misses. So I'm going to throw in D-Rob into that conversation. But other pieces that I'm interested, maybe you guys could give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I got the list right here. Jazz Chisholm. Right, I've always been a fan of Jazz Chisholm with the Miami Marlins, basically with the second worst record in all of Major League Baseball right now. I think if you were to take his one issue has been injury, right? He always has injury concerns in his career. But if you take him away from that situation in Miami and you put him in that Yankees dugout and that locker room with Aaron Judge, with Juan Soto, with a lot of those veterans, I think you'll get the best version of Jazz Chisholm. That's one guy, right? And then you can also look at Tanner Scott or Andrew Nardi. Nardi is somebody that we've talked about for a while on my show. I like his numbers as well, just like Ryan was pointed out. When you look at Colorado, Ryan McMahon, I'm right there with you, NFE. I think Ryan McMahon is going to be a big commodity at the trade deadline. You're going to have multiple teams trying to trade for him. But on top of him, if we're going to have to give up a lot of prospects in a trade, I'm gonna want more than one player coming back from that team. So I do like Jalen Beeks, who's a left-handed reliever in Colorado. So if we do give up a lot of prospects for Ryan McMahon, maybe we could get back Jalen Beeks as well, a lefty to help our bullpen. He's 30 years old, so he's not like he's gonna cause crazy when it comes to the prospects. He's pitching to an ERA of 4.09. I think that's bloated just because he's pitching in Colorado. If you look at his splits, his ERA on the road is under 3. His ERA in Colorado is basically at 5. So I think him pitching in Yankee Stadium, you have him at a solid ERA. So I think that's a good piece. And then besides that, Cody Bellinger. I'm going to still push hard for Cody Bellinger. If the Yankees are able to figure out a way to try to get Cody Bellinger to the Bronx, I know that's a pipe dream. That's just my fantasy fan fiction if I was a GM of the New York Yankees.
Let me ask you a question. Do you guys think that Ben Rice is taking Cody Bellinger out of the equation?
Yeah, point? Big time. I wouldn't have kept Cody Bellinger in there if I didn't have this fan fiction. But Ben Rice sold me. The way that he's come up and the way that he looks like an 8-year, 10-year veteran at the plate, even though he's a rookie, his plate discipline is phenomenal. I've seen him play in Somerset. I know some of you guys probably visit Somerset as well to go see him play. But Ben Rice, I'm a big fan of him. We're going to be with Ben Rice on the 18th. My guy Frank Luna is doing a watch party with Ben Rice at the Woodbridge Brewing Company. So if you guys tune into Yanks Morning Brew this week, we're going to be doing a giveaway for a Ben Rice signed autograph giveaway. We'll give you the details how you guys can enter for that.
Nice. Now, I mean, if we talked about this a lot on the channel too, like, I would trade for Cody Bellinger if I did not have to give up Ben Rice in part of the package. I would like to have both of their bats in the lineup. And if there's any way I can move Ben Rice back to catcher without interrupting his offense, I think it's an upgrade offensively at catcher and an upgrade offensively at first base. So it brings two lefty dynamic bats to the lineup. But I worry about interrupting Ben Rice's because he seems to profile nicely at the one spot. He seems to profile nicely at the 4 spot too. And Bellinger, I think, is the guy that would come in here and move Alex Verdugo where he belongs, so like the 6 or 7 spot. Alex Verdugo has no place as a cleanup hitter. Neither does Gleyber Torres. So I think a more representative body like Cody Bellinger kind of helps situate the lineup a little bit better. And right now, the hot bat, Ben Rice, I'd lead him off. I would move Anthony Volpe down, and that's fine too. Get some more contacting speed in the bottom of the lineup. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
I just want to just add on one more point to my take. Yankee fans, I know this has been a horrible 2.5 weeks ever since the month of June began. I get it. It's been a horrible month. We're on July 6th right now. But even with that horrible month that we just had, Baltimore, they only have a 2-game lead on us, right? We still have the 3rd best record in the American League. It's Cleveland, it's Baltimore, and then it's the New York Yankees. Shout out to the Cleveland Guardians as well with the best record in the AL. Everybody was telling them that they should fire sale and just rebuild, and they said, bump that. We're going to go hard for it. So shout out to Cleveland. If you're a Cleveland Guardian fan out there, we're jealous of you because you guys have a solid organization. I just want to give credit where credit is due. But Yankee fans, it's 162 games, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to win 60, lose 60. It's the next 42 games that determines if you go to the postseason or if you're sitting at home in October. You guys got to understand that teams are going to go through highs and lows. That's why it's important to start good in May and April so you could go through 2 to 3 bad weeks in June and July. But I understand the frustrations because there are question marks. And coming into this season, we were all having conversations on our channels that this team is not complete. We know Brian Cashman has to make moves at the trade deadline. That was already a given going into spring training and going into the start of the season.
Yeah, to your point, Mike, that's exactly it. Even when we were rolling, how quick we got to 50 wins, we were still talking about the needs of the team.
Yep.
And that's why we're glad that Jason put this together to talk about the trade deadline because we still have a lot of holes to fill. And even, some of the holes that have been filled still have those question marks. Is Wells going to be the real deal behind the dish? Is Holmes going to be able to straighten himself out and continue, and grow into that closer role the way that we hope he will? Is Ben Rice going to take his own spot at first? Is Waldo going to find his home at third? What's going on with DJ? These are a lot of question marks. And these were questions that have been asked when we were winning.
Mm-hmm.
It's really highlighted and underlined in italics with glow print, through the month of June. It's been a nightmare. But we're still, like Hector said, we are still in great shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully they got off to that start to make it easier to absorb this shitty 6-15 stretch that they're under. They're 19 games over 500, and they wouldn't be that way if they didn't get off to that start. So thankfully they got off to that start. So, and I'm grateful that they're only 2 games out, and it could be worse. It really could be worse. So, and it's a testament to what they've done. Brandon, do you think Yankees bypass Cody Bellinger, pivot to Ryan McMahon? Possibly. I mean, Ryan McMahon's. I mean, if I was a GM, he's one of the few guys that I would pay top prospect. When generally the Yankees don't pay top prospect in trade deadline; they pay top dollar in free agency. That's kind of how they've been operating for the last a little while. So, and they've been better in free agency than they have been in trades. That's just the reality, unfortunately. So, but he's one of the guys that I would go after. And like you, to your point too, Eckert, I would try to add a reliever because if I'm going to give up top dollar in terms of prospect, I don't want a second piece. Yeah. And this is not a one player solve. This is a multiplayer solve situation, right? They need help in the infield. They need help in the rotation or the bullpen. Period. Yeah. So I would also try to get a start. And I've talked about moving some starters to long relief, like a Hill or a Nestor Cortez, something like that, because you would add value to the bullpen. And the better we are in long relief, the better protection you have on both ends of that, right? In the rotation and the short relief in the bullpen. So I do think adding a starter was probably a good idea. And Brian Cash was probably quietly seeking one. And I like the Nathan Eovaldi. That's a good idea, man. That's a really good idea. But if I was GM, I would go after Ryan McMahon. I would probably call up Vivas too, because Vivas has been playing extremely well. And I would try to go after Crochet, but I have a feeling that what we would give up for Ryan McMahon is probably going to be required in the Crochet trade.
Yeah,
probably have to choose one or the other.
And with Colorado, you're going to get 2 players back, and then when you look at Chicago, it's just Garrett Crochet, because the Yankees, they're not going to bring back the contract of that third baseman. I forgot his name. Skipping me off the top of my head, who was with Boston. And they got him in the Chris Sale deal.
The Yankees?
Moncada, I believe it is.
Yeah, Moncada. Yeah. Moncada. The Cuban prospect that the Boston outbid the Yankees for. I don't think the Yankees are going to bring back. I think Moncada makes about 16 or 18 million. I don't think the Yankees are going to bring back, even though
I
it
also
would just
think
be
he's
half
done
of
for
it.
the year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's done for the year. I think he got hurt on some collision play or something early in April. I could be wrong. I don't know if I'm wrong on that.
No, you probably are right, because I haven't seen anything from him. But that was somebody that I was keeping my eye on as a possibility at the trade deadline. So Ryan just shot that down. So thank you, Ryan.
Another thing to keep in mind as we go through all these trade proposals and ideas, I've said this on Hector's channel on his open panels plenty of times. Sometimes the best moves hurt. So don't hang too close to your prospects if you really want to improve this team, because you're gonna lose somebody that you don't want to, but you need.
Oh yeah, my guy Jimmy says it on Twitter. Hug your girlfriend, not your prospects.
I like that one.
Prospects are temporary. Banners hang forever, right? Like your prospect status is it goes up, it goes down. But if you want, like I've said this before on Fireside Yankees, we could be taught like, look, if the Yankees are an 88 win team, next year, let's say they're not, let's say their farm system's depleted, whatever. But we got a World Series. I promise you, this time next year, we're gonna be talking about the Yankees. Like, oh, we'll only have 88 wins. Well, you know what we have on our finger? A ring, a nice little ring right there, and nothing beats a ring. Nothing beats a title. Nothing will beat a title.
Prospects are just lottery tickets. You just hope that you got the one that hits.
Yep. Like, who had Ben Rice playing this well at first base this quickly? Sometimes you never know. But Cashman also has to realize that you have to know when to pull the trigger on some of these guys. When not to be so patient. We've seen that way too often. And I think that's where the distrust with him comes in.
Yeah. Does Ben Rice make Augustin Ramirez expendable now?
No, because I want to keep Ben Rice at first base. If his plate discipline and his bat looks like this, I don't want his knees to get shot catching half of a season. And it's good that he's a versatile guy that he could fill in as a catcher if you're in extra innings and you have to pinch run your second catcher if you already pinch hit your primary catcher for the game. So it gives you versatility. That's why I brought up Jazz Chisholm, because not only does he play center field, he's a second baseman. He came up as a second baseman. If he plays center field in Miami, guarantee you he could play left field in Yankee Stadium. So there's opportunities that you could start Jazz Chisholm as your second baseman, and if you have to sit Verdugo, you can put Jazz Chisholm in left field and put whoever you want at second base. It just gives you more options. That's why I think it's important, if the Yankees do make moves, get guys that play multiple positions, not just one position.
And him and Rengifo, I think, were the only two guys that prototype somewhat as a leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
You
And he'll give you that youth and energy, like on top of what you get. And if Marcus Stroman is in that dugout, Jazz Chisholm is going to feed off of Marcus Stroman, and Marcus Stroman is going to feed off of Jazz Chisholm, and vice versa to everybody else in that dugout. If you guys thought Alex Verdugo, if you guys thought his energy was top notch, just imagine what it'd be like if you had Jazz Chisholm entered into that equation.
That's a fair point. Yeah, dude, it's oh my god. Yeah, I mean, so to finish this off, like what I would do is I'd go after McMahon at third base and try to get him. And I would likely call up Beavis, and I would most likely go after Tanner Scott, because I think we have a better shot at getting McMahon than we do at Garrett Crochet. So, and then I would call up a reliever like a Neely and something like that. I have a feeling they're going to make one trade in the infield and one trade in the bullpen. Hopefully impactful ones, and they'll call up a few guys. But we'll pivot right into predictions, because predictions are usually different than what we would actually do as a GM. So, what would you predict, Tats, that they would actually do?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, because we do need the first base depth. I think if they're going to trade with Miami, my prediction is going to be Tanner Scott and Jake Berger.
Berger for third base.
But yeah, we need that infield depth. Yeah, and I think he could also transition to first too, in a give a guy a rest type of situation.
All right. Yeah. All right. What about you, Anthony?
That's a hard one, man. I wish I had an 8 ball right in front of me to tell me, hey, this is what's going to happen. But
I got the cue ball, so you're halfway there.
I'm ready,
all right,
baby. Ryan, enjoy your hairline that you have right now. Once you hit 30, that shit is gone, bro. All right, enjoy it. And I swear to God, I still have my original driver's license picture from when I was 18, because it's the only picture I have with my hair still like that. So enjoy what you have, Ryan.
I was gonna say I'm over 30, Ryan. So I mean.
Yeah. Well, you're different. You're different.
Okay.
You're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
No, but really, man, oh my God, this is the part that I don't like, because whenever I make predictions, they go south. Let's just put it that way. But I honestly see the Yankees going after one of the Marlins relievers, whether it be a Tanner Scott or Andrew Nardi. Chisholm, I will. I know Hector's brought him up. I would love to see him. I don't know that the Yankees go. I don't know that the Yankees go after him personally, but that's just me. If they do, great. Like I will absolutely welcome it. But I think right now the only prediction I will make is that the Yankees go after one of the Marlins relievers to help their bullpen.
Uh-huh. So, all right. If you what would your predictions be, Ryan?
I'm going to make a bold prediction. They're going to swing a trade to Miami for both. They're going to get Nardi and Scott in one deal. They're going to make a big trade to try to get both. Knock out your bullpen needs. Knock out all your bullpen needs in one move. And if you think about it too, like Scott, 1 year guy, right? 1 year guy. Nardi's your multi-year guy. And then if you think about for closing situations too, when you have a situation like last night where you have so many lefties with Boston, they had so many lefties in that lineup. You can say, all right, I'll go to Holmes when they got righties coming up. But in the ninth, when I know they got, Devers and Yoshida and Smith, I'm going to Scott. And you make Scott, you make their lives a living hell, right? I think this team needs to get a lot more. It's crazy to say this because you usually say about the lineup, but now it's on the bullpen. You need to get a lot more left-handed in there. And why negotiate with 3, 4, 5 different teams when they're talking to, all these other teams in the league? Get Miami on the phone. Don't get them off the phone. Don't let them off the phone. Get your 2 guys. Walk away, finish your bullpen there.
What do you think it would cost to get both of them?
I mean, relievers on the market. So it's interesting because you would think they cost so much, but relievers. I mean, think of their value, right? Like how much relievers go from really good to not so good the year after. So I don't think it would cost anything crazy. Like I don't think you're talking about like a Jones or an Arias or a Lombardo or anything like that. But Yankees have a lot of Rule 5 guys who are performing well. Benjamin Cowell's in Double-A. He's killing it there. I think that could be appealing to Miami because he's in Double-A. He's a little bit older, so he's a guy who could help Miami in a year or two. Maybe a guy like Rumfield, right? Like first base. That's a position where Miami's going to need a lot of help. The Yankees have always done a really good job of producing arms. I just don't think it's going to cost them like again, any of their like top 5, 6, or 7 guys, any guys we talked about as like these A chips or A plus chips, however you want to label them. I don't think it's going to be crazy to get Scott and Nardi. I really don't. Maybe that's a little bit controversial.
Do you think Brock Selvage would be part of the package or something like that? He's like,
I think Selvage would be like Selvage plus somebody else at most. If you're throwing Selvage in there, I doubt you're gonna have to throw much else in there.
All right, I like that. That's a bold ass prediction. I like that. Hector, man, what do you got, man? What would you predict?
Oh, I want to triple down on what Ryan just said. Nardi, Scott, and Jazz Chisholm. Right, so we're gonna triple down on it with the Miami Marlins. And when you look at that prospects, like he said, Scott and Nardi, I don't think you're gonna have to give up the big chips for. But when you look at Jazz Chisholm, you may have to throw in something sexy. So I wanted to give up Chase Hampton, Everson Pereira, even though I know Everson Pereira is hurt right now. But when you look at our 20 prospects, what is ranked in the 20s, Zach Messenger, Tristan Verling is 2 prospects that I think will interest both starting pitchers would be interesting to Miami. And then an outfielder by the name of Jace Aviano. Just to throw in an extra prospect so they could get like 5 or 6 prospect. In return, we get 2 relievers. Tanner Scott, he's pitching the American League, so he's familiar with the division. You get another lefty in Nardi who helps extend your bullpen's depth. And then you get a guy like Jazz Chisholm who could be a second baseman and who could play multiple outfield positions if you need to have him out there. I think everybody is going to be focusing on Ryan McMahon at the beginning of the trade deadline for the first 2 or 3 weeks right before it, or even right now. I think that's going to be the main target. So you got to call up Miami, like Ryan said, while everybody is focused on Ryan McMahon, you call up Miami and you try to sneak in there and get that deal done. Get back 3 if you're going to have to give up prospects.
Man, you went right for the sleeper hold. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's good, man.
We don't play.
Question: you guys think that trade with Miami, like hypothetically speaking, if that went down, you think that would include a Will Warren in the conversation?
He just struck out 11 tonight, Will Warren. He's
yeah. I'm saying, would Miami ask for Will Warren? You think
they might ask, but I don't know if they're going to get.
Yeah, I'd say yes if I get Chisholm. You know, if I'm getting, that
I was just about to ask.
Yeah,
I was about to ask you, Ryan. Would if Jazz Chisholm is in the return with Scott and Nardi, will Warren stop you from making that move?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, think of just like how many check off. I mean, you look at the laundry list, like the things the Yankees are looking for, right? Check. I mean, you've just checked off a lot of your boxes. And again, you look at the rotation too, like every single guy currently in the rotation, including Clark Schmidt, who is going to come back soon. They're all in their contract for next year. So it's not like you are like, I know injuries could happen, but if you're going to fill out a rotation spot, it's probably by signing somebody, if we're being honest, right? And that's not even mentioning, Beater, who I know he's hurt right now, but was really balling out in AAA. It's not like the Yankees are in need of like finding the next rotation guy for next year.
Okay.
Let me ask a question. Does the success of Poteet prior to his injury is that making Warren a little more expendable?
Short term, absolutely, right? Like you feel like your Poteet is your 6/7 starter. It doesn't necessarily feel like Warren has to be that. And again, I don't mean to say this to be dismissive of prospects or anything like that. I know that these players are capable of becoming good players, but you have to also think of how many opportunities they're going to get. We think about what happened with Peraza, right? It felt like he was going to get so many chances to play, and that just never happened. It never shook out his way. It felt like Warren was going to get a lot of chances to pitch. It hasn't shook out that way. That's baseball, right? Like when you're a contender, you usually don't just turn to prospects all the time. That's usually your last resort. Rice came up because literally nobody else could play first base. If you can't get reps for these guys, again, it's either they're going to help you on the field or on the trade market. It's one of the two. It can't be just stashed away in AAA, in my opinion.
Valid point. That's a valid point. If I could predict, I think they're going to get one of the Marlins relievers, and I would like to, though. And I think Cashman's going to parlay the relief he has with Pittsburgh, and he's going to trade for Nick Gonzalez. He's a 25-year-old from the Pirates. He plays second base. He plays third base. He's versatile. So I think that's the type of trade he's going to make. It's going to be a non-sexy move, but he's got controllable years, and it's going to come with a reliever. And I think they'll do some. And he'll make some other kind of trade that we're not thinking of. But that's if I could predict anything. I do think Ben Rice is taking Cody Bellinger out of the conversation, and then good. You know, it's nice to see one of the kids come up and do his thing and ball out. Really nice.
Yeah. Just for context, Jazz Chisholm is under contract for the rest of this season and 2 more years. So he has 2.5 years of arbitration control. He makes $2.3 million right now. So he is on the cheap end. And you know, Brian Cashman, if he could get players on a bargain, you know, he'll try to get a player on a bargain. Jazz Chisholm is also 26 years old this year. So it's not like if he was 22 or 23, it would be a pipe dream. He's close to the 30. He's close to the free agency. So I don't think the asking price for Jazz Chisholm is going to be that crazy. I'm not trading. I saw somebody in the chat ask me, I'm not trading Jason Dominguez for Chaz. No, for Jazz Chisholm. No way. No, I'm not trading Jason Dominguez. I've said there's only 2 scenarios that I trade Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez. And the 2 scenarios is if I get Corbin clone copies of Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Garrett Cole. If I'm not getting clone copies of them, I'm not trading Spencer Jones or the Martian.
Yeah.
No, I already said the only player I would use those guys for, we already have, and that's Soto.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, that's
I'll throw out one bold name because I know we're talking. You know, Crochet's obviously the big lefty name in the AL Central, but one guy that I think could get floated around in trade talks is Tariq Skubal, and I'm just gonna put that out there. If he became available and you got the White Sox and the Baltimore Orioles in conversation for Crochet, you knock off a team that's gonna be big into starting pitching off of the list of guys looking for another starter, and Skubal's comes available, I'd move heaven and earth. Like this guy. I mean, we saw what he did in Yankee Stadium when he came. I think he gave up a home run early in the game, but after they just shut us down, he's got the arm, man. He's 97 for the left-handed side. Could you imagine Cole from the right-handed side, School from the left-handed side? I mean, I'm dreaming big here. I don't think it's going to happen, but you know,
I would go after him before Flaherty.
I would go after him. I would go after School before Crochet even because I know the workload's there. Like Crochet, the one thing that scares me is just it's not just Tommy John, it's shoulder stuff. It's a myriad of different things that have happened over the last few years. I know Skubal's health record isn't clean, but I know he can start, and I know he can consistently start and get through the course of a season. And then again, I mean, like a 2.45 ERA and 119 strikeouts in 103 innings is just nasty. Like that's just gross stuff. He doesn't walk anybody, doesn't get up home runs, big ground ball guy. Like he just screams like you said, carbon copy of Garrett Cole. I don't know if he's going to win the Cy Young, but he looks like he could win it. And if you want to talk about carbon copies, let me get the reigning Cy Young winner, and then let me get the guy who's going to win it in 24. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when he was available? I think an off season ago, Detroit was trying to trade him, and the Yankees were around, and no, we can't trade for this guy. Look what he's turned into. It's crazy.
What's his contract? When is he a free agent?
He's a free agent in 2027. I just looked it up. So he comes with a couple of years of control. So
that's going to cost you.
That would cost you a lot. But I'm just saying, if the Yankees want to go top, if the Yankees want to go all the way in for a starter and they feel like they need to get that kind of guy, and you're paying that price anyways, if you want to go get Crochet, go pivot to School at that point. He feels like the kind of guy that I feel like we're not even sure if Crochet's a starter in the postseason just because of the workload, right? Like I think that already for me kind of goes, I'm not paying top dollar.
And we already know, we already know Skubal's a starter. So
right, exactly.
And it's not a transition point. It's not. He's another guy. That's a good one.
That game he pitched against the Yankees, I think he struck out like 9 guys or 12 guys or something. It was something.
He dominated.
He was filthy.
He struck out 12 of them.
The Yankees still won that game, but he dominated in that game. But he's a good name.
There was another name that was thrown into the chat, and it's a big one. What's your opinions on with Vladdy?
Vlad Jr.?
Yep.
Look, first base is interesting with Ben Rice, but I will say this: I'm willing to make friends with enemies to get that kind of bat in the lineup because I think the bat's so good. The bat's so good, man.
Yeah.
If he came here, I'd welcome him with open arms. I mean, I would worry about the righty thing, 3, 4, 5, but if he hits, I'm not gonna worry. So, and
if this was a fantasy world, right? If I'm playing MLB The Show, fantasy, I could turn the payroll off and all that, right? I would definitely try to get Vladimir Guerrero on this team. You can't deny his bat. You can't deny the potential of the potency that 2, 3, and 4 of Soto, Judge, and Vladdy would bring. bring. But in reality, when you look at the Yankees payroll situation, when you look at how the roster is structured right now, Ben Rice makes all the sense in the world because he's a lefty bat. He's a guy that can play first base and catcher. He is on the cheap end. So if we need extra needs in the bullpen, the starting rotation, we could spend our money that way instead of being stuck with Vladimir Guerrero and his $18 million at first base. Again, would I love to have Vladdy? I love Vladimir Guerrero, right? I know Juan Soto is getting all the love from the Divos and the Titis over there at Yankee Stadium. And shout out to half of the Dominican Republic who showed up in the Bronx to cheer Juan Soto on. And if you don't think that other Dominican players from around Major League Baseball or seeing what Juan Soto is going through and how he's being embraced, you don't think that's a little bit jealous? You don't think Vladdy wants some of that? Absolutely, Vladdy would love some of that as well. So I think Vlad would love to be in Yankee Stadium more than the Yankees would love to have Vlad in Yankee Stadium, if you understand what I'm saying.
And also, I was going to say, if they were able to make peace with Marcus Stroman, I think they could make peace with Vladdy. So
he's doing the Bryce Harper. He's cutting his hair, you know, he's putting the beard down, you know.
Yeah, and they didn't do Junior dirty; they did Senior dirty.
Yeah.
So his dad, I mean, Brian Cashman had an agreement for Vlad Senior to come here, and he was overruled by George Steinbrenner, who wanted Gary Sheffield instead. So that's it.
That's George's doing,
right? So like, I'm not surprised why Junior would be bitter about that. That's his pops. I wanted Vlad Senior here too. I love Vlad Senior.
And when you look at it, you know, Gary Sheffield, he was amazing 2004, 2005, but he got hurt in 2006. Look at what Vladimir Guerrero did for the Angels in that time span. He won an MVP in 2004. If Vladdy was on with the Yankees, who knows what would have happened in the postseason?
He would have probably won the Olympic gold in javelin too. He had such a good freaking arm, Vlad Senior. Like the guy was unbelievable.
I remember this one All-Star Game commercial where it's like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. It's just all the spots he can hit.
Yeah.
My earliest memories watching baseball. Just this it's like head, shoulders. It was so funny. It was such a funny. I don't know if it was a commercial or just an in-game ad or whatever it was.
Yeah, I remember when it was a nationally televised game. I think it was the Angels versus the Guardians. It may have been opening night 2006, but it was a pitch that literally bounced off the dirt and came back up, and Vlad still hooked it for a home run. For a home run, that was crazy. I was watching that game.
I know.
I remember that.
I'll never forget that, man. He could hit a ball over his head anywhere. He could hit over the fence. Yeah, and he can throw it just as far as he can hit it. He could be at the wall and throw it into the audience, into the stands on the other side of the stadium.
It was bogus when he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. It just felt like one of those voters, like, okay, what are we doing? You know you're gonna put him in. Just vote him in first ballot, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like, what the hell? How is he not a first ballot? Oh my God! But that's, I mean, so if in a perfect world, and to counter your point too, and we'll finish with this, guys. In a perfect trade deadline scenario, what would a perfect trade deadline for the Yankees be for you guys, Tats?
I think a closer and a third baseman or a second baseman. I think if you can get two of those three positions, I think we're set up very nicely.
The NFE?
Bullpen. I would say two bullpen arms. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like two lefty arms because that's the Yankees' weak spot right now. Perfect world, I would say two lefty arms and a third baseman. I know we talked about second base, but I feel like Yankees can call up a guy like Vivas. I mean, I'd even call up Peraza, but I doubt the Yankees are going to do that. But perfect world, I'd say two lefties and a third baseman.
Who goes if two guys come into the bullpen? Who goes? Who leaves?
Ferguson's one of them. I think they need to DFA him. The other name.
Kane Lee.
Yeah, Marinaccio could be moved. I think he's made himself dispensable.
Marinaccio is another one, and then one of the other ones that they picked up on waivers. One of the pitchers that they picked up on waivers. Forget his name.
Michael Tonkin.
No, not Tonkin. I think Tonkin's.
No, keep Tonkin.
Keep Tonkin.
Yeah. But it was another one. He pitched recently. Because it's not Bickford because he got DFA'd. He's gone.
Is it Cousins? Cousins gone. It's not Cousins.
I thought Cousins was on the team still.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
is.
he's
Yeah.
got brought back.
Yeah.
No, he'd be
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
move
yeah.
now.
So he
Yeah.
might be another name that I would think of DFAing. So
I think I have a feeling that Cashman's going to try to offset in a trade either Marinaccio or Canley's salary.
Yeah.
And the salary he brings in, since they're over the cone threshold, he's going to want some type of salary to go out. Those are probably the most logical salaries to go out because he's not going to offset like a Rizzo or anything like that. That's not going to happen. No. Ryan, perfect deadline. What would you do? What would it be a perfect deadline for you?
Left-handed relievers for sure. I mean, Caleb Ferguson as your first left-handed option it's been a journey. He's certainly one of the baseball players to ever play this game. But I mean, left-handed reliever, starter, and third base. Those are the three positions where, like, if you check, and check, I feel really good about this team. I mean, again, the last 2 weeks, I think the problem really was the last game was just like the effort, right? Like that was really the disheartening part. It felt like that was the effort, the intensity wasn't there. I think we can all live with just bad. Like we've all struggled. No one's perfect. Struggling happens. But it's the effort, that kind of thing. I think a good deadline too, like that brings the morale up, right? Like imagine if you're, Volpe or Verdugo, you're scuffling, and then you see, a big name walk into the clubhouse to help your team. You're like, you know what? This front office believes in me. I can get this thing going. And then the infield, you kind of, it creates pressure, right? It creates kind of like a your job isn't safe kind of thing. And I think that's important, right? Like I think it's important to kind of up the intensity because if you're LeMahieu or Torres right now, you're kind of going through it. You don't feel like there's anybody behind you who's going to play over you, right? As you mentioned, Birdie is hurt. Cabrera's kind of the utility, do it all, that kind of thing. Bring in a big time infielder to help that team and just deepen the lineup. Once you get Stanton back, once you, hopefully get Dominguez back, you start putting that lineup together and you go, oh, these guys can hit. Oh, these guys can put up runs. And then you add a big time starter, you add a reliever, and you go, suddenly you look at this team and you put on your glasses, you look at the roster and go, yep, this team could go out and win the World Series. And I don't know. I feel like this team can do it. They just need the proper deadline. And those are the three areas where they need to get help.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Hector, what about you, man? Perfect deadline.
Perfect deadline for me is I'm going hard with this Miami Marlins trade, right? For Tanner Scott, for Nardi, and for Jazz Chisholm. Only because as of right now, shout out to Clay Holmes and what he has done ever since becoming a New York Yankee, right? I want to give him flowers what flowers are due before I even kill him, before I even critique him. I want to give him his flowers, but he cannot be the closer. I'm sorry. He could be a phenomenal a setup guy, maybe a dope seventh inning guy, but he cannot be your closer going forward. I think mentally he is drained right now. He needs a breath of fresh air and he needs help. And I think if you bring in Tanner Scott, who's familiar with the AL East, when you look at Tanner Scott's stats, he has a 1.42 ERA, 13 saves this year, 12 saves last year. And even though he had a 4.31 ERA in 2022, he still had 20 saves. So this is a guy that he could come in and be your closer for this season immediately. You can figure out the future closer after this season. But I think for right now, it could be Tanner Scott with Clay Holmes moving down and Nardi being the guy that comes out of the bullpen as that lefty reliever. That way, Tanner Scott is not just is lost as a lefty coming out of the bullpen because he's your closer. I think Nardi and then Jazz Chisholm will give you that pop in the lineup with Tanner Scott filling in for Clay Holmes, and you just move Clay Holmes down to take that extra pressure off of him.
It kind of feels like that deal, that Nardi Scott Chisholm deal, kind of doesn't it remind you of that 2017 deal where they got Frazier, Canley, and Robertson, supercharged the bullpen, got that infield bat they needed. It's eerily similar, and I feel like that trade, people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah,
huge win for the Yankees, right? Like
big time,
Frazier for them, hit that big home run off of Morton. Canley and Robertson were huge for them. If they didn't have Robertson, they don't get past the wild card game. So, that trade saved their season, and that team was really going through it entering the deadline. I don't know. That trade it sounded a lot like I was about like infield.
No. And I wanted to bring that up because a lot of Yankee fans, right? And over the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've been seeing not a narrative because I think that word gets overused, and I think people need to pick up a dictionary and look up other big words to use in conversations if you need a conversation holder. But I think there's something that's being pushed around saying that Brian Cashman doesn't make big moves in that season, and that trade that Ryan just brought up, that was a big move in the middle of the season at the trade deadline that helped push us not only into the postseason but helped us advance out of the first couple of rounds. I mean, out of the first round. So that's a great point, Ryan.
And also, not every blockbuster trade is a success. Don't underestimate, and we've all brought it up at certain times during our shows in the offseason. Don't underestimate the change of scenery theory. Especially with guys like a Chaz Chisholm. You could see, you put them in a winning situation. Sometimes you're like, this is not what we got better than we expected. So I think that's the other factor that can come in. Because you see a lot of these guys, we talked a lot during the offseason with the White Sox guys. With Cease and these, they're like, with his numbers last year, they had nothing to play for. These are athletes. Their drive is to be competitive. You put them on a playoff team, sit back and watch. You'd be surprised how your expectations are raised.
Yeah.
These are people at the end of the day. Imagine working at something that doesn't feel competitive, doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then you shift to an environment where you're ultra competitive, you're getting closer to the top of the mountain. Because at the end of the day, it's not Hall of Fame as the immediate goal. It's a World Series, right? World Series trophy is immediate. That's what these guys want to win. They want to all be a part of a World Series winning team. Even Hall of Famers, I'm sure there are guys who will tell you the one thing that they still think about is, not winning World Series. Not that nobody wants to be, but the best players to never win a World Series, or best players to never win a Super Bowl, the best players to never win the finals, right? There's always that what if in their careers. Winning a title, winning fixes everything. It does. It just does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I know Jazz Chisholm gets beat up a lot because he was on that podcast and talking about his former teammate, Miguel Rojas, who was like the veteran leader and captain. It's like, bro, you suck in your career. He can't say that to Aaron Judge. He can't say that to Juan Soto, right? He can't say that to Verdugo and some of the other veterans that are in that lineup. And if you were to take Jazz Chisholm and bring him over here, he's not batting in the top of the lineup. He's not batting 1, 2, or 3. He will be moved down into the 7th, 8th, or 6th spot. That's where Jazz Chisholm will be. So he won't have that pressure to automatically produce as he does in Miami right now.
This is true too. And then he bring that swag here. He would add to the swag of that is sometimes lacking in it when they need it. So and sometimes the swag puts them over the top, man. Gives them the energy they need to win, man. And they haven't been winning a lot lately. So anything that's going to help them win, it's going to be a good thing. So, and I do think, and I stress a lot. We're 3+ weeks away from the deadline, so patience is not easy, but it's important. Every week there's new buyers, there's new sellers, so the calculus is going to change for the Yankees. We don't know who the hell they're going to get. We just don't. And the teams are going to try to create a bidding war. And when you have a limited amount of teams with a certain amount of players, like the White Sox want a bidding war between the Yankees and the Orioles for Crochet. Somebody's going to overpay for their guy, right? The A's want somebody to overpay for Mason Miller, right? And so I don't even know if he gets more. But that's what that's what they want. So they're going to hold on to their gems as long as they possibly can. So I expect trade deadline week to be a hell of a lot busier than the next 2 weeks. But there's going to be a hell of a lot of speculation and talk and new names being floated. So we're going to keep bringing them. We're going to keep talking about it. So, hey guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was very, very valuable.
This was fun.
This is the type of thing and a lot of fun. And this is what I love to do with you folks, because you elevate the discussion. You bring in a lot of new ideas. I loved Evoldi. I loved the Marlins trade, Hector, man. I love the double bullpen attack from Ryan too. Like all you guys brought up some very good freaking trades, man. Good ideas. And to me, this is why I like to do this, because it encourages me to think about it through your lens. And that can only elevate everything. It makes everything better. So I thank you guys again for coming on. Really, it's been a great pleasure. And hopefully we can do this again after the deadline. Maybe we can recap. What the hell did the Yankees do? What's the success or failure? What do we think? So if you guys are up for it, let's come back and recap this after the deadline, and we'll see what happens. And we'll
I'm here, bro. Send the bat signal, and I'll be there, brother.
Yeah, I'll put out the bat signal. I'll put it out. I'll get the flag going, and we'll see who the winners and the losers of the deadline are. You guys up for that?
I'm count me in. And if I could just say one more thing real quick, Jason, I just wanted to say real quick, and I'll throw it over to somebody else so they can go. Everybody that's in the chat, shout out to you guys, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to the people that watch us. Shout out to the people that hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, interact with the chat, right? When it comes to the different content creators, you guys know in my open panel, I have everybody on. I never tell anybody that their take is stupid. I'll never argue with anybody. I don't like that debate format. I think we are all knowledgeable Yankee fans. We are all knowledgeable content creators. And it's great that we all have different opinions so we don't sound like an echo chamber regurgitating the same takes over and over and over again. So I want to say appreciate all of you fellas, Ryan, NFE, Uncle Tats, Uncle Grandpa Tats, and of course to you, my guy Jason, Mr. 161, and you guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Like I say, our conversations are good, but they're even better because we have you guys in the chat to engage with, to help give us great topics, to help support us. So we appreciate y'all.
Yeah, you guys make us think about stuff we're not thinking about either. You bring up some names too, and we'll see something pop up in the scroll. And sometimes the scroll goes too damn fast. We miss a lot of stuff, so we apologize if we don't see everything. Last night the scroll went so fast in the live stream I couldn't keep up with it. So I apologize for that. But thank you all for doing everything, and make sure that you subscribe to everybody on the screen right now. You definitely don't want to miss the content that these guys put out either. Very, very, very valuable. This is a great Yankees community right here. You're all part of a great Yankee fan community. Okay, so we appreciate you all. Guys, Tats, NFE, Ryan, Hector, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Always a great pleasure. Always a great pleasure. And Tyler Talbot, call up Neely. I think a lot of us would echo that sentiment. Call up Jack. And
Yeah.
he's earned the call up. He's earned it. So hopefully they'll do that in the next couple days or weeks. So, but again, have a great night, everybody. Peace and love to all of you. And thanks so much for your supporting us and everything that you do. So with that, we'll see y'all hopefully tomorrow and the next day. Peace, guys. Gentlemen, let me turn this. Let me flip this here.